to Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wilding in the stand. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gonna be our year. We're here drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring. Yeah.
What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds, the Sacramento Kings YouTube channel for fans, by fans. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to smash that like button. And if you would like to join the Royal family with Calvin and I, we would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button as well. Right, Cal?
That's right. Don't forget about Vinny Squatch.
Yeah, don't forget about Vinny as well. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. It is Thursday, May 5th. We're here. We're not drinking any beers today, but we are talking
tequila either. But
we're talking
maybe
about
some tacos later.
Sacramento Kings, and we're going to give some updates here on the head coaching search. We're going to talk a little bit about the NBA drafts, free agency, and then we're going to end the show with Q&A. You guys, the fans. So Calvin, let's start off here. Let's get going. Anything you want to say before we get going here?
Happy Cinco de Drinko, and happy birthday, my buddy Ethan Shortridge.
Yes.
Shout out.
Yes, shout out. Happy birthday, Ethan. All right, Calvin. So let's talk about this head coaching search. You want to give us a few updates?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I think most people know now the Kings have whittled their coaching search down to 3 finalists: Mark Jackson, Mike Brown, and Steve Clifford. Mark Jackson and Steve Clifford have reportedly already had their second interviews, or their most recent interviews with the team. Mike Brown has a couple days off from his duties with the Warriors, so he is in Sacramento today to have his second interview as well. And the Kings it is reported that they are going to make a decision on who will be the next head coach within the next couple of days, Barry.
Wow, very, very exciting. Looks like they're not going to wait for the season to end to see if anybody else does get fired here. I know I'm hearing that Vivek's favorite is Mark Jackson, and Monty's favorite is Mike Brown. So we will see who wins over that situation there. I've been reading a ton of articles over the past week about all sorts of people hating on Mark Jackson and what he did to the Warriors. I saw some articles from some Knicks fans when he interviewed back with the Knicks in 2018 about why they did not want him to be their head coach. A lot of crazy stuff, Calvin.
Yeah, there's going to be lots of rumors swirling around no matter what, right, until the decision is made. So,
yeah, well, we're getting closer to naming a head coach. I think that's the first domino to fall this offseason. Then we have the NBA draft lottery, which is just less than 2 weeks away on May 17th. Crazy. We will be here on the channel doing a little draft lottery party, so make sure you guys tune in for that. It's going to be a very interesting couple weeks here, Calvin, getting into the summertime. Then we have the NBA draft and free agency, all that fun stuff. The Kings look to be making some moves already here. It's exciting stuff, and hopefully it pays off and we can watch the Kings in the playoffs next season instead of all these other teams, and no Kings as well. All right, PG would either work out better than Miles Turner. Asha wants Boban. Yeah. What's up, Lee? What's up, Asha? Good to see you here. Calvin and I were a big fan of Miles Turner, and we actually wanted to bring him to this squad. Even considering the injury, we thought it might help the Kings draft positioning. They did not choose Miles Turner. They took Sabonis, which I'm not mad at. I think Sabonis has been very productive. He had his own injury concerns as well, ending the season for Sacramento. But we're moving on here. We're trying to find people that fit with Fox and Sabonis. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But Calvin, I just want to kind of hear your thoughts on this whole head coaching search, where it's going right now, if you like the things you're hearing, if you don't, and just how it feels to be a Kings fan in the middle of all this.
Well, I don't know if I have to answer the question, how does it feel to be a Kings fan? I think all Kings fans are kind of on the same level right now. So, we're here through the good times and mostly the bad times, and we'll still be there, until it becomes a good time. But in terms of the coaching search, I guess my biggest takeaway right now is I'm a little surprised, first of all, that none of these younger assistant coaches made it to the final round. I feel like with Monty McNair's background, being an analytics guy, being, a guy that definitely does his homework when it comes to all of this stuff, I'm just surprised that not a Darvin Ham or a Will Hardy or somebody like that made, the final list of candidates. And what worries me is not necessarily what will happen to the Kings if Mark Jackson is hired as coach. What worries me is that there appears to still be a divide within the organization between ownership and the people that are in charge of running the team on what the right answer is. We've seen this be a problem for Sacramento in the past. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will be a problem this time. However, as a Kings fan, and I think a lot of Kings fans are in the same boat, it's very worrisome that we could be repeating more past mistakes here in terms of the owner getting too heavily involved in the decision, and it ends up being ultimately the wrong one.
Yeah, I definitely see that side of the story. The thing for me is, Vivek was involved with the Warriors. He was involved in the Mark Jackson situation. And I'm hearing all these rumors about how when he was fired, everybody in the Warriors organization hated him. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case if Vivek wants him to be here in Sacramento.
But is that a good thing?
Yeah. So it's kind of some interesting, dialogue that you're hearing back and forth here. Of course, it's okay if you're an owner to have a favorite or somebody that you want the team to hire because he's a fan as well, right? But is he going to do the meddling that he normally does or we've heard rumors about, or is he going to allow his GM to pick the right guy? I'm still hoping the latter is the case there, but it's all, I guess, if you've been watching the Johnny Depp trial, it's all hearsay at this point. So we don't know exactly who believes in what and what's going on here. However, they're moving closer to picking a coach. I do think that all three of these guys are experienced coaches in the NBA. All of them, are kind of similar in terms of they are players, coaches that empower their team, empower their players. They've all worked and developed young players in the NBA, and that's exactly what the Kings need at this point, right? Is they have a bunch of young players that are trying to find their way. They're trying to fit in together. So I think they're on the right track in terms of tackling that aspect. But it does worry me a little bit that there are some divisions here. Yes, when you have a great management team, you don't want everybody to agree, right? Because you don't want a bunch of yes men walking around saying, yeah, that's a great idea. You want people to be able to express their opinions. You want to have diversity in the workplace in terms of different ideologies and stuff like that. So hopefully they're working together to each express their opinions and why they're so strongly opinionated in a certain situation. But we're going to see what happens here in the next few days in terms of who is the next guy. I don't know if there's a right answer at this point. If you prefer Mike Brown, if you prefer Mark Jackson, or if you prefer Steve Clifford. I just think it's important to understand that all three of these guys want to come to Sacramento. They want to make a difference here. And Monty's got to choose his guy, and he's got to give his coach time to develop the roster and implement a system. I'm tired of this hire one guy, fire another guy a year later or 2 years later. We need to try again. They're actually going through a real coaching search here, and I think they're going to identify the guy that fits this roster best. So I'm still trusting in Monty to make the right decision here, and hopefully it is his decision. But we're getting closer to finding a new coach, Cal.
We're getting a lot closer. Progressive G, maybe I missed something, but I'm not sure what I said on this show about Mike Brown yet, other than he has an interview today. So I'm not sure what your comment means, but
yeah, and Mike Brown is not a bad coach, man. he's done things in the league. He's doing really well with the Warriors. I know he has got a good connection with Greg Popovich, stuff like that. He is a bright mind in the NBA, and only one team wins the championship every year. So if you just base how good a coach is on whether they've won a championship and what they did or did not do with LeBron James, it can go the other way around, that LeBron didn't do anything until he went to Miami and played with D. Wade and Eric Spoelstra and people like that. So we're not professionals. We're just fans here watching from the outside, and we just have to trust the ownership group and the management group to make the right decision.
Yeah. That's all we can go with right now.
Any comments on playing styles as far as these coaches go?
Well, I think that if I was making the decision, or if I was part of the group that's making the decision, my vote would be for a guy that is going to come in and command the locker room right away and be a defensive-minded coach. And certainly Steve Clifford and Mike Brown fit those bills. I mean, you can say what you want about whether either one of them is good from a success standpoint. I mean, Mike Brown has success as a head coach in the NBA. Yes, a lot of it is tied to LeBron James, but, again, when we're talking about great coaches, a lot of them have rings and are considered great coaches because they were tied to great players. I mean, you look at all the greatest coaches of all time, Pat Riley, Greg Popovich, Phil Jackson, Red Auerbach, all these guys, they coached great players. So it does go hand in hand a lot of times. That doesn't mean that I favor, any one person above the other. I didn't really think that any of these three finalists would be in the position that they're in. I like Steve Clifford a lot. I will say that as a coach. I don't know if he's the best pick for this Sacramento Kings team, but yeah, D'Antoni was in the mix. He just didn't make it to the final list. So now we're hearing that I think Mike D'Antoni is interviewing for the Charlotte Hornets job, either today or in the next few days, something like that. He's going to get a head coaching job somewhere. But I think are we down to just 3 teams left that need coaches?
Lakers,
Hornets, and Kings, I think.
Kings. Yeah, I don't think we heard anything about the Blazers, whether they're firing their coach or anything like that. Real quick, I just want to kind of break down these coaching records real quick. So first off, Steve Clifford has a combined coaching record of 292 wins and 345 losses. He's been with 2 teams, the Charlotte Hornets / Bobcats and the Orlando Magic. Out of his 8 seasons here as head coach, he's got 3 winning seasons. His first season with Charlotte at 43-39. His third season with Charlotte at 48-34. And his first season with the Orlando Magic at 42-40. Mike Brown's got a much longer coaching record or resume here. Many people know him with the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James. Then he went on to the Lakers, back to Cleveland. Then he spent some time here with the Golden State Warriors as assistant coach. His combined record is 369 wins and 231 losses. Had a ton of winning seasons with the Cleveland Cavaliers, pretty much every single year with them except for his last year in 2014 without LeBron James. He won an NBA Coach of the Year award, one of few coaches to win the NBA Coach of the Year award and be fired the very next season, which is crazy. He's been with Golden State here since 2017, so you can imagine the connections there with Vivek. Vivek was a partial owner of the Warriors before that time, and he continues to still love and root for that team. And then Mike Brown here, 3 years as head coach as the Golden State Warriors head coach, has a record of 121 wins and 109 losses. First year with Golden State, 23-43. He ends up turning it around, winning 47 games in his second season and 51 in the season after that, before being fired for a guy like Steve Kerr and going on and winning an NBA championship in his rookie season. So a lot of numbers there I just threw out at you guys, but 3 qualified candidates. Obviously, Mark Jackson has the least head coaching experience, as he's been, in the broadcast booth now for 8 years or so. Interviewed with the Knicks, as I mentioned, back in 2018, did not get the head coaching job. But any thoughts on those, Cal?
Any thoughts on
those overall records and what those guys did for those respective teams?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a reason why all of these guys are in the mix, and it's because of their past experiences or relationships with winning organizations, right? Like, you use the word qualified candidates, and I think that's an important thing to take away from this. I agree here with Progressive G's comment that the fact that these 3 people are in the mix for this job is definitely an upgrade from what the Kings are used to in the last few seasons.
Yep.
I mean, Luke Walton is shouldn't even be in the same conversation as any of these guys, in my opinion. So, you just gotta, like you said, trust that the Kings are going to make the right choice here. And I think what's most important is, again, to go off something you said, that we give this coach a fair shot and that they're able to be within the organization for more than a year and a half before it comes time to pull the plug. That might require a little bit of patience on the end of fans and on the end of the organization. I certainly hope that Monty McNair gets offered another contract with the Kings no matter what happens here in the first 30 games of next season, because I don't think you can put it all on who the coach is at that point ultimately. But it's going to be interesting. These are qualified candidates, and I think that if you're just basing it off of their previous coaching experience or resume in the NBA, that's not enough. You've got to listen here to what they have to say about this particular team, what they're going to do with this team, how they're going to use De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, and I'm sure all of that stuff is being played out here in these interviews.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Ivan here has a great point. The best coach is the one that the players want to play for. If that's Jackson or Brown or Clifford, then the organization needs to go in that direction. I couldn't agree more. Basically, De'Aaron Fox is your franchise player. Domantas Sabonis is the guy that you need to impress over the next 2 seasons to get him to re-sign, so you didn't give up Tyrese Halliburton for nothing. I think these guys need to be involved in this decision as well. Calvin had a good point early on that these guys are all defensive-minded coaches, and that's something that the Kings have sorely been missing. Personally, if I were to pick a guy here, it's probably going to be, Mike Brown, and that's just based on the fact that the dude has an NBA Coach of the Year award and has had the most success at the NBA head coaching level, and has also been around this Warriors team recently, so I like him a lot. I don't think that Steve Clifford is a bad choice, and I also don't think that Mark Jackson is a bad choice, but I'm just going to reiterate what I've been saying here, is that Monty needs to be all in on this decision. He's the guy that's rebuilding this franchise. He's bringing in these players, so he ultimately needs to be the guy, in my opinion, that has the final word on this coaching search.
Yep, you hear that, Vivek?
Yeah.
Stay out of it.
What did they call us out last time, saying we had the Vivek money for this studio, so we always look out for Vivek? Yeah. I don't know if that's true, but I do love the fact that Vivek kept the Kings in Sacramento, so that is important. I heard Luke Walton landed a coaching gig at the YMCA. I wouldn't doubt it. You think Luke Walton will coach in the NBA again, head coach?
Head coach? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Probably not. I don't expect it to be anytime soon.
He's still pretty young.
He is young.
Oh, here's a good question.
I expect that he gets back as somebody's assistant first and then, becomes available for head coaching position. But
Milkweed said Jackson would be great for Sacramento, and if Philly fired Doc Rivers, do you guys think Sacramento would look into it?
Look into it? Yeah, probably. I don't know if they would end up hiring him, but I think they might end up having already made the decision as who's going to be the coach before Doc Rivers gets fired anyway. So,
yeah, I don't know if Doc Rivers is going to get fired if they get swept here. But, yeah, I think they're going to make the decision here in the next few days, next week. So that'll probably be, before anything happens with Doc Rivers. But, yeah, they're just going through the right search, guys. Like, I'm just going to reiterate that again. This isn't we wanted Luke Walton 2 years ago, and now we're just hiring him and not interviewing anybody else. Seems like they're going, through the motions here. They are kicking the tires on guys. Don't know what happened with Kenny Atkinson. Don't know what happened with some of these younger guys. But, the important thing to remember is that it doesn't matter how much the Kings want to hire a guy. If he doesn't want to be in Sacramento, it's not going to work. So I think that all three of these guys are finalists for the position. They've all been terminated from their previous job, which as most coaches, that's how you end up leaving your former job, is you get fired. And they're all looking for another chance to make a name for themselves in the NBA and help out the Sacramento Kings. And that's all you could really ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you make of the Joe Dumar's departure? I mean, yes, he's taking another job with the NBA, but there's rumors going around that Vivek, he wanted more control or more say in basketball operations within the Kings, and Vivek didn't like that idea, wasn't willing to give him that, so that's the ultimate reason that he left.
I think that's interesting. I like Joe Dumars.
Is it a big deal for Sacramento? Is it not a big deal?
I think that Monty needs more power. I'm tired of hearing about how Sacramento has just divided the power of the front office between all these different people. We heard about all the stuff about Marvin Bagley and Dave Yeager and the problems in drafting players. Ultimately, they need to decide and say, this guy is the one that has the final word. And I think that should be Monty McNair. I think that needs to be your general manager as far as basketball decisions go. So I think consolidating power into one position or maybe two positions is a step in the right direction. Mark Jackson just fits and would teach the game and would work well with Fox and Sabonis. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't see any reason to argue or disagree with that right now. I mean, Mark Jackson, he's a former point guard. He should know the game pretty well. I don't think my worries about him are not necessarily that he wouldn't be able to coach the players that the Kings have. My only worry is that there are more qualified candidates out there than him, basically.
Yeah.
That the Kings are choosing to pass on. They're not even putting them in this final list of coaches.
And the Warriors were his first try as a head coach. So, whether it ended bad or not, I think he did a great job with Golden State as far as like getting them in a position to start competing for championships. Yes, Kerr is officially the guy credited with, bringing them to the finals and having them win a title. But I think that Mark Jackson definitely had a pretty big imprint on that team. He put confidence in guys like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. That's really what the Kings need, is they need these young players to be confident in themselves. De'Aaron Fox, to me, has all the talent in the world. He just screams to be a guy that's like, he needs a little bit more. He needs a coach that really believes in him. And I think that's something that he really liked about Luke Walton, was he felt like Luke had his back. But Luke Walton was not the right guy in my opinion for the job. And I think that Mark Jackson could do much better for him than Luke Walton.
Yeah.
Jug's got a good point here. Either way, no matter who is the coach, if the Kings can't make moves this offseason to improve the small forward and power forward and maybe even shooting guard, they are not going to be much better. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's very important. They need to make some moves here this offseason. RP says Mark is the guy. Doc would hurt the development of the Kings' young core. Yeah, I see a lot of Kings fans here are pretty split, but I do see a lot of Mark Jackson fans in here, so that's good. Sean, hey guys, I think Jackson would be interesting because I want to see how he develops Fox and Mitchell's game. My vote is for Jackson, but I think Monty will go with Mike Brown. What do you think, Cal?
Well, that's what we're hearing, right? That Monty prefers Mike Brown over anybody else, but that Vivek prefers Mark Jackson. So, again, it comes back to this, you know, I've seen it a few times now, and we've talked about it a bunch already, the internal divide within the organization. You know, Ivan's got a great comment here from the D-Lo and KC podcast, just saying that the organization needs to commit to winning above all else. And you've got to find a way to get on the same page here. That's ultimately that should be the number one goal here from all parties considered.
Yeah. Sean says, I think Brown is the safer pick. I would not mind it. I just believe with Jackson, the risk is not worth the reward. I don't know, man. I do agree with you. I think that Mike Brown is the safer pick in the fact that this dude is known for defense. He already won NBA Coach of the Year. He's spent a ton of time here with the Warriors, and he's been coaching more recently than Mark Jackson. But I think they're both qualified people, and we'll see what happens here. We'll see what happens. I'm definitely not knocking any of the three candidates. I'm just happy to see the Kings actually going through a real head coaching search, which, you know, maybe it's, as a Kings fan, we've been robbed too long of that and all these crazy decisions that have really happened here in the past 5-10 years. But I trust Monty. I do. I think he's done a great job so far.
He hasn't given any reason to doubt him yet, so.
No possibility of an actual head coach instead of assistants and a retired coach commentator. That's a tough comment, man. The Kings aren't going to hire any head coach that's currently with the team, so any coach they are going to hire is either retired or been fired in the past, and that's exactly what these three guys are. The Lakers brought back...
Patrick, it's still between three. Steve Clifford's still a finalist. And I personally, I don't think he's getting talked about enough. I like Steve Clifford as coach. So,
is that your pick? Who would your pick be?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I can make an argument for and against all three of these guys. So, I'm pretty divided myself.
Yeah, RP says this coaching hire has all the same vibes as when the Halliburton trade went down. Really split fan base. I mean, you're going to have split fan bases when you've been losing for this long. I still am bummed on the Halliburton trade, but I think it was probably the right move at the time. The Kings brought in an all-star, and that's the tough thing about a general manager, right, is you have to be able to make those decisions that maybe the fan base doesn't like, but improves your franchise in the long run. I remember when Monte Ellis was traded, how many Golden State Warriors fans were disappointed in that trade. Yep. And I think that could be the number one catalyst for what ended up making the Warriors what they are now, is trading Monte Ellis, choosing Steph Curry, getting Bogut back. They won 3 titles.
They did.
Steve Kerr was a commentator, so was Doc Rivers. I agree with those. Also, both ex-players. I have no favorite for coach, but I like they're considering only defensive-minded coaches. Yeah, I think that's a good comment.
I like that as well.
It's a tough choice. Are you guys excited, though, that at least we're getting closer to the end of the tunnel as far as the coaching search goes? Like, there's been all these questions all season long, right? That was Luke Walton the right guy? When's he going to get fired? Then it's like Alvin Gentry. Oh, Doug Christie now. You know, finally it's going to feel like, well, we have a head coach. We know this guy is our head coach, and hopefully it will be for the next 3+ years, and they'll actually give that person a chance. But I, for one, feel a little relieved in the fact that not even for us, but just our players are going to have a guy that they can look up to and go, this is our head coach. This is the guy that we follow. And Monty can actually start developing a system with that head coach and say, hey, who do you want to draft? Who fits your team? What do you think? He can't do it by himself because, the coaching staff is an extension of the front office, and a lot of veteran players are an extension of the coaching staff. So all those parties need to be working together to get the Kings back to where we all want them, and that's in the NBA playoffs. And I think they're definitely taking a step in the right direction. Progressive G says Jackson or bust. I think the shooting guard position is not bad with Terrence Davis coming back, and if the Kings sign Dante, that's not bad with a Fox and Mitchell point guard rotation and Dante and Davis shooting guard rotation. What do you think about that, Calvin? I know we had talked about that.
I agree with that, but again, going off of your previous comment, I'm only okay with it if they upgrade talent otherwise or at other positions. Power forward in particular is the one that I'm looking at. This offseason, I've said it before, it's all about upgrading talent on this roster. And the two positions that I'm looking at first and foremost are power forward and shooting guard. If I have an opportunity to bring in, a really high quality shooting guard, I could care less whether Terrence Davis and Dante DiVincenzo come back because then it's a moot point at that in that situation for me. So, I was watching a little bit of Locked On Kings with Matt George yesterday, and he had Franklin Cardicelli on from the Return of the Roar podcast, and they were talking about Terrence Davis potentially starting next year at shooting guard. And you can make a case for it. I agree with that. Like, he definitely showed flashes of being the right type of player that the Kings need at that position. Adds shooting to the team, high energy guy, brings it defensively. He's not the greatest on-ball defender in the league, but he still brings the effort as well as Dante DiVincenzo. But my question really, if that's what you're going to go with, is how much better are the Kings if they don't add any other talent, but they start Terrence Davis at shooting guard next to De'Aaron Fox? How many more games is that team winning? I don't really know how many it is. It's probably not a really high number. So it's this offseason is all about upgrading talent. If you're able to go out and get another really nice player to fill either the small forward or the power forward position, then yeah, I think you can be totally fine with having DiVincenzo and Davis as your rotation players for the two guard.
And where does Justin Holiday fit in there?
Probably doesn't fit in at all. I'm bummed because I was excited about what Justin Holiday could bring to this team when he was traded. But again, it's the same situation for me. Like, he's the right type of player, a guy that is expected to shoot the three really well and play good defense, but it doesn't change much for your team if you don't go out and upgrade talent at other positions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This team has a lot of good players. They need more great players. They need to chip up here. They need to trade some of these guys to get, guys with more talent. They need to figure out what they're doing with their draft pick, which we'll figure out here in the next week and a half on May 17th at the NBA Draft Lottery. Also want to remind you guys, we are going to be having a draft lottery party on this channel. Calvin's going to be DJing, so hopefully you guys are available to tune in. It's going to be a huge day for us Kings fans. We might even have a head coach at that point. Then we'll figure out where we're drafting.
Probably should, yeah.
And that will have a lot of questions. That'll give us a lot more insight, and then we'll be able to answer your draft questions, your trade questions a lot better because we'll actually have a little bit more knowledge about where the Kings sit here. Because having pick 1, 2, 3, as opposed to having pick 9 or 10 is going to make a huge difference for this Kings offseason.
Yes.
It really will.
Yes.
But back on Calvin's point, yes, I agree. I think the 4 and the 2 need to be upgraded the most significantly. They need to figure out what to do with all these fringe players, and they need some actual starters on this team. And then you fill in the rest with what you got. I'd be okay with Terrence Davis starting or Dante DiVincenzo starting at the 2 if we're able to upgrade the 4 position. if we're not able to upgrade the 4 and we're throwing Metu out there again, then I want Bradley Beal or somebody at the 2. You know, like, we need to do something to add more talent to this team. I would rather have Victor Oladipo over Justin Holiday if we can sign Victor in free agency for a moderate price. Thoughts, Calvin?
Love that idea. I think there's a huge upside here with potentially signing Victor Oladipo. I think that you're going to be able to get him for a decent price. We've talked about it a couple of times, but there's an anonymous GM that says he expects Victor Oladipo to be signed for a minimum deal next year. So you could see the Kings potentially getting like a Malik Monk type guy if you're only going to have to pay him the vet's minimum for 1 year, or if you're even able to sign him to, you know, a 2 or 3 year deal that pays him something like $3 or $4 million a year. You know, if it's something reasonable like that, I think that would be a great move for the Kings.
Yeah, I agree. And I've heard some rumors that Victor Oladipo is interested in Sacramento too. It'll be interesting to see what happens here as far as the finals go. I know a lot of guys try and chase the ring. Once they get the ring, then they want to get paid. We'll see what happens as far as that goes. But Victor Oladipo had some great seasons in Indiana along Domantas Sabonis, and they were traded together twice, right? Or just once, because they played together in Oklahoma City. Then they end up playing together again in Indiana. So I think there is something to be said about having them team up in Sacramento. And Victor Oladipo will probably welcome having a bigger role than he does on a team like Miami, because he seems to be getting healthy.
He'll have a lot to prove too.
Yeah.
You know, if he wants to get that back to that point where he could sign a big time deal, he would have a lot to prove.
Ray says Bradley Beal shot only 29% from 3-point range.
Yeah, he did have a rough shooting season this year. You know, I think if you're telling me the Kings actually have a realistic shot at getting Bradley Beal, though, he's got to be better than. I would much rather roll him out at 2 guard than anybody that's currently on the roster. So.
Oh yeah, Bradley Beal will automatically be probably the best player on this team if you end up trading for him, or at least the second best player. The dude was leading the league in points per game early last season and the year before that. The dude has a lot of talent, and I would happily welcome him on this roster any day.
Yeah, that's a good point. He was playing hurt for a decent amount of this season.
Progressive G says, is Bobby Jackson or Doug Christie still involved with the organization?
I believe they both are. I mean, Bobby Jackson had a pretty good year, I think, as the Stockton Kings head coach. I'm expecting that he will be in that role again next year. Doug Christie is the question mark, right? Because when you hire a new coach, that usually means that the assistants kind of get rotated in and out as well. So maybe he's able to keep a spot on this within the Kings coaching staff, depending on who the next head coach is, but it's not guaranteed, right?
Yeah. Can you guys all do me a favor right now? We got 30 people watching. We only got 11 likes. Can you guys smash that like button if you're a Kings fan? We need to see it from you guys. Calvin and I would greatly appreciate it. We make these videos for you guys. We enjoy doing it. We have fun. So we get paid in likes. So we'd appreciate if you guys would hit that like button. All right, Dr. Johnson. How do we find the next guy that is not known about now and about to become great, like these guys that are stepping up in the playoffs?
Well, it's all about having the right staff, right? And that goes from top to bottom. Your scouts, your talent evaluators, your coaching staff. You have to have those guys in place that go out and find those guys, first of all. And second of all, there's luck involved. I mean, as there is in, a lot of these decisions that get made, who you draft, deciding who to give a big contract to in free agency. Yeah, certainly you want to do your due diligence and have the right people in place that you trust to find those diamonds in the rough. But there's definitely luck involved in that situation as well.
Yeah, and you have to develop a culture, and you got to start developing your players and start winning games. It doesn't matter how good some of our players play if the Kings aren't winning any games, nobody's going to see them step up in the playoffs.
Love the point about TJ Warren in here too, though. That's a guy that I brought up, right around the trade deadline or maybe a little bit afterwards. Another person who could be a very high reward, high potential
Has to
signing.
get healthy.
Has to be healthy, yeah.
Yep.
But, all these guys that we're going to talk about that you can get for cheap deals, most of them are going to have injury-ridden past. So
there is a reason for that. What about a Zach Levine sign and trade, Cal?
Still find this unrealistic. I just think that after the year the Bulls had, they're going to do everything that they can to bring him back to that team. I think they definitely feel like there's unfinished business. They didn't have their full squad healthy for, well over half the season. When they were healthy, they were right at the top of the Eastern Conference. I just find it hard to believe that the Bulls are going to let Zach Levine get away.
Yeah, and I don't know why Zach Levine would want to leave that team, especially to come to Sacramento. I think the Bulls are really building something. So I would not look forward to having Zach Levine, or I would look forward to it, but I wouldn't expect him to be in talks with Sacramento in a sign and trade. Unless for some reason the Bulls just decide they don't want to pay him. In that case, if I'm Sacramento, I'm all over that because I would love to have him on this squad. I think he could play great with De'Aaron Fox.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He would
great
be a
three-point shooter.
Great person to fit alongside of him. It's just one of those things. I don't see it being realistic.
Do you think Fox will be a whole different player this season coming up, stat-wise?
A whole different player? Probably not. Just because I don't mean that in a negative way or in that De'Aaron Fox won't have a good year. But, we saw 2 years ago him have arguably the best year of his career. A lot of people thought he was, an all-star snub maybe. He got off to a poor start this season, but he got better and better every month as the season went along. And then by the time, right before he ends his season with an injury, he was again playing, really at a high level. So I expect that to continue into next season.
Yeah, we all saw him, basically hit that wall. We got the contract extension for De'Aaron Fox. We all expected him to step up and become that guy. I think he definitely showed some flashes here after the trade deadline this season. But I'm really expecting him to have one of these years. Maybe it's this year, maybe it's the year afterwards once he gets more comfortable with the new coach and the new system. But I'm really looking for him to make a huge step, and I really hope it is this season. But I think that he has all the talent. I think he definitely has the drive. We hear him talking about how he just wants to win. So I do think we're going to see a big, change in De'Aaron Fox for the better. And I just hope it's this year. I really do.
Yeah, and I love Tyrese as a player, but I really think that not having him playing alongside De'Aaron Fox is going to benefit Fox more than it will benefit Halliburton to, be up in Indiana running that team. Like, as much as I hate to say it, I just feel that those two were not the right fit together.
Yeah.
Because it was limiting De'Aaron Fox's potential as a player.
And you have Davion Mitchell here too. And having three of those guys, you have so much talent at one position, and then you end up with these big voids like we saw at the 2 and the 4 and stuff like that. So they definitely need to shuffle some of this talent around, and I think they already started doing that. Dr. Johnson says, I think Fox, Davis, Davion are three guys that would step up in the playoffs because they have the rare athletic talent to take that step once everything becomes so serious every play. I agree. I think that those guys are guys that live for that moment. They just haven't had their chance yet.
Definitely.
Zach Levine is an unrestricted free agent. He is, but the Kings would have to work out a sign and trade if they would like to bring him in because of how much money he is going to command.
And the Bulls have his bird rights too, right? Yeah. So that means they're able to offer him, a big deal, even though it would put them over the cap.
Yeah, they can offer him the most money for sure. And if he were to move on for the Bulls, I don't see any reason he would want to take a discount to go somewhere else either. They want to get that money. Imagine thinking Halliburton would ever be able to dominate or even survive in the playoffs. You have to have a high-level defense, or you would be targeted and destroyed in the playoffs every day. I mean, Halliburton's still young. The dude has shown some flashes. He's definitely got better on defense. He just needs more time. He really does.
Yeah, I do agree with the fact that I think teams would go at him one-on-one in a playoff series defensively. He's a much better help defender or team defense player than he is an on-ball defender, in my opinion. He has the skills and the length to be a good on-ball defender, but right now that's just not where he's at. But that's also what happens for young players who get into their first playoff series. It takes learning experiences. You go through a hard battle in the playoffs, and you learn from that. You come back and you get better. Yep. Like we see that happen with a lot of guys, a lot of stars in the NBA, or eventual stars.
Yep, I agree. Jay Drew, what's up, dude? Haven't seen you in a while. Reports Kings will make head coach selection by the end of this week. Does that mean tomorrow? Because it's Thursday already. Amick reports McNair will be given leeway to make the final decision. That's music to my ears.
It's great. I hope it's true.
And that probably means that we're looking at Mike Brown as our head coach, because everything I've heard is that is his favorite. And he's honestly my favorite at this point, too. That's good to hear. Maybe we'll have some clarity very, very soon. I know we haven't been putting out a ton of content on this channel. We've been trying to go live every single Thursday here to give you guys updates on this stuff. We're going to be doing a draft party on May 17th on this channel. Calvin's DJing. It's going to be a bunch of fun. But if you guys have missed us, or if you guys enjoy talking about basketball other than the Sacramento Kings, we do have another channel. It's called Basketball at the Bar. I'm going to post it here in the chat. We would appreciate if you guys do go and subscribe to that channel as well. We put out fresh content 5 days a week on that channel. So there is a ton of Calvin and Barry if you guys want to listen to us. And we're also a little bit more interactive in that channel as well. We break down every single game that happens, and we end every show with questions and answers. So if you are a basketball fan, if you are an NBA fan, or if you're just a Kings fan and you like listening to us and you miss us, please go subscribe to that channel. It's getting better every single live. We're making a little community there, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. Flurry 11, who is the winner of the Marvin Bagley autograph basketball when we did that
shout out
giveaway, says the Kings win the Summer League again.
Too early to tell. I mean, we don't even know what the Summer League rosters are going to look like. So, definitely bringing back guys like Davion, and I hope Emmanuel Terry gets on that team again because I like him a lot. But, we don't know where any of these first-round draft picks are going. I think it's a little too early to call on that.
May 17th, we'll know some more there.
Yeah.
We will. The Kings win the draft lottery. They have a good shot at winning the Summer League. But, yeah, as Calvin mentioned, who's going to be playing on this Kings Summer League roster? We don't really know.
Who's going to be playing on anybody's Summer League roster?
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts, Calvin, before we wrap up the stream here?
Just, excited that we're really close to a decision being made here on the coaching position. It's probably the biggest domino that has to fall this offseason. It's the most important one. And it should be the first one, too, which could set off a chain reaction, hopefully, that the Kings will end up having a really, really good offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the first domino to fall. May 17th is going to be really important for the Sacramento Kings to see what happens here. And just real quick, I know we mentioned Victor Oladipo and him potentially heading to the Kings this offseason. Another guy that I would really love to see the Kings target is Deandre Ayton. I know he's number 1 overall pick in the draft a few years ago. He's been playing well with the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix has been reluctant to pay him the max contract that he wants. I do think he's a max player, and I think the Kings could really benefit from a guy like that. So if he is available and I'm Monty McNair, I'm going to do whatever I can to try and get him on this roster. I think he would fit really well next to Fox and Sabonis. And, talking about starting a guy like DiVincenzo or Terrence Davis, if I had a big inside like Deandre Ayton that can work inside, that can also shoot the three, I think it would greatly benefit this team. And I'd be totally happy to have a guy like Terrence Davis start at the 2 if I had 2 guys dominating inside in Sabonis and Ayton. And talk about rebounds. We've talked about the Kings have been horrible at rebounding for so long. They brought in Sabonis, one of the best rebounders in the league. DeAndre Ayton's not a bad rebounder as well.
No, not at all.
So he could be a very good pickup for the Sacramento Kings, and he's very young as well. So I think he fits the time frame for sure. Dr. Johnson, I appreciate all your comments here. Hopefully,
all you guys, thank you.
Hopefully you're not with any patients right now or anybody waiting on you. Every time I go to the doctor, they stick me in that waiting room for like 45 minutes, and I just freeze myself waiting for the doctor to come in. Are y'all surprised at the impressive defense being played in the playoffs by all these teams? Can Sacramento players ever learn to play that well? 3 Sac players you want to see given that chance?
Well, first of all, am I surprised? Absolutely not. Defense wins championships. You always see the defensive level go to another level when you get to the postseason. These are the best defensive teams in the league. That's why they were seated where they're at. That's why they're in the position they are. So I'm certainly not surprised. Can Sacramento ever learn to play that way? That is the billion-dollar question. We've been asking that question in Sacramento for years. I don't know what it is, what it takes to teach guys how to play defense. It's a really, really difficult thing because defense at its core it is simple. It's about effort and determination and will. So how do you instill that in a grown man? You can teach people this is where you're supposed to be and help in these situations. This is how you play a 2-3 zone, all of that stuff. But if you don't make somebody want to play defense, they won't be good at it. All of these guys have great defensive potential because of their athletic ability. Talking about people like De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, Terrence Davis, I'll throw him in there as well. Mm-hmm. So can they do it? Yes. But ultimately it's going to be up to the hiring the right coach that these guys are going to want to play for, like Barry said. And then it's a matter of them going out and doing it themselves. So that's a tricky question. I don't know. I hope that the Kings get to that point. I really do.
Yeah, and, I could mention 3 players here, but I'm going to mention every single player on the Sacramento Kings because I want to see the Kings in the playoffs. And I think, the difference between the start of last season and the end of last season was the trades that were made. Every single player on this team wants to fight for their position. They want to fight for a spot on this roster, and they want to play in the playoffs. So I would be ecstatic to see every single guy on this Kings team in the playoffs next season. I think they added a bunch of guys that give effort and energy on every play. Just to mention a few, Terrence Davis. I love Davion Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis. I would love to see what all these guys can do in the playoffs because I think they really deserve it. And I feel like the Kings are moving in the right direction. So I'm definitely excited for that. All right. Mike Brown has never done anything without LeBron James. What has Mark Jackson done without Steph Curry? Right? We could play this game all day long. What has Phil Jackson done without Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan? You could play that game all day long. It's a team game. It takes multiple people to win in this league, and give them another chance.
More importantly, it takes great players to win in this league.
Yeah, more than one, too.
It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter to some degree how good your coach is, but it's a player-driven league, obviously.
And it takes more than one, which, I'm sure you guys are watching Luka Doncic. How well is he playing in the playoffs? They're down 0-2. They might get swept in this round. And
he needs help.
Yeah, he definitely needs some help. He's a restricted free agent. The Suns ain't going to let him go. We don't know, Ray. depends on whether they're willing to pay Ayton or not, because he can go out and get a max contract offer from the Sacramento Kings. If they don't want to pay him, then they're not going to retain him. Their owner's not known for paying people.
He's not. They shouldn't let him go, but who knows what's going to happen.
And he just paid Chris Paul a bunch of money. They paid Bridges. They paid Booker. So can they afford all those guys? We don't know. Maybe they win the championship this year like I predicted, and then maybe the owner's like, okay, I'm good. We won our championship. Now I need to balance the checkbook. And unfortunately, he could be a guy that doesn't fit in with that team next year. Y'all underestimate how talented DiVincenzo, Fox, Davis are. We're not underestimating them at all, man. I think they're all talented players. I think the playoffs show what body types and ability levels are needed. Look at the Celtics body types. I mean, body types are one thing, but you know who doesn't have a typical body type who played well in the playoffs? Jokic. That guy has played incredibly well. But that just goes to show how many guys you really need on your team to win games, because just like Doncic, he can't do it all himself. And Doncic doesn't have a typical body type as well for an NBA player. I know he's big, he's strong, but he's not freaky athletic or anything like that. All right, we're getting a lot of comments here, Calvin. Any other thoughts on these?
No, I mean, I agree with most things that are being said here. Like, it all comes back to the fact that the Kings roster, as it's currently constructed, just hasn't been good enough. Like, they need to upgrade at talent. I agree. Terrence Davis has upside. Dante DiVincenzo has an upside. But I'm not sure what their ultimate ceiling is. And again, I go back to what I said earlier. If you don't add any other talent to this team and you just roll out with Terrence Davis as your starting shooting guard next year, how much better is that Kings team?
Yeah.
I don't think they're that much better. They might be a little bit. You would hope that given a full year of Fox and Sabonis together, Terrence Davis can stay healthy for an entire season.
Same coach.
Harrison Barnes would have to play big for them, for that team. But how many more wins is that team getting? Do they get to 40 wins? I don't know.
I hope so. I'm still going to bet on them winning the over again. I don't know if it's 36.5 again or whatever, but I'm placing that bet again because I'm high on this Kings team. I think they're going to do really, really well next season. I just am. But I think we're going to wrap it up here unless you got anything else to say, Cal.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, happy Cinco de Mayo. Hope you guys can enjoy your Thursday. Go get some tacos. Go get some cervezas, some tequila. Have an awesome day. Hopefully, we'll catch you all tomorrow at Basketball at the Bar. We start at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we'll be back next week on Thursday. And the week after that, join us. Please join us for our draft lottery party. It's going to be a lot of fun. As I mentioned, Calvin's going to be DJing. We're going to have a bunch of fun stuff. Maybe we'll give away some stuff too. So make sure you guys stay tuned. If you have not subscribed to Royal Rebounds or Basketball at the Bar, please subscribe to both channels. Please like this video. And also, don't forget to put that notification bell on as well, because it will let you know every time a new video comes out. Calvin, you have a comment?
Oh, I just want to agree here with Dr. Johnson. I brought up Sam Cassell's name a long time ago. I'm surprised that he hasn't gotten more looks, not from just the Kings or the Kings specifically, but from the league in general. It is surprising to me.
Yeah, I like that guy a lot. There's just something out of this world about him. I don't know exactly what it is, but I like Sam a lot.
Barry thinks he's an alien.
Yeah, he is.
That's what he's trying to say.
He is. I think he's going to be in the new Men in Black movie too, if that one ever comes out. But all right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you all so much. We love the Kings. We know you do too, and we appreciate you guys spending your time with us. We know everybody's time is very, very valuable, so we appreciate you guys spending a little bit with us, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday. In the meantime, go Kings.